Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Northern Illinois University Art Museum's virtual event this afternoon, Music for Self-Care and Healing with Jen Conley. I'm Stuart Henn, the museum's education coordinator, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and introduce our speaker today. A few notes about the presentation. This Zoom event is being recorded so you can rewatch or invite others who aren't able to join us live today. Once closed captioned and formatted for web viewing, you can stream a recording of this presentation by visiting niu.edu/artmuseum/events. I'll post all URLs in the meeting chat. To minimize interruptions, everyone has been muted except our presenter. Feel free to ask questions in the chat and I'll help moderate those at the end of the presentation, time allowing. Programs of the NIU Art Museum are sponsored in part by the Illinois Arts Council Agency through federal funds provided by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Friends of the NIU Art Museum, the College of Visual and Performing Arts season presenting sponsor Shaw Media, and the NIU Arts and Culture Fee. This exhibition and programming are part of the College of Visual and Performing Arts program, Rejuvenation, an artistic journey from trauma to recovery, Art Heals. This afternoon, our presenter, Jen Conley, is a licensed professional counselor and musical therapist with over 30 years of experience. Conley works with patients and clients in hospice, mental health, and medical settings to help patients with pain reduction, depression, anxiety, quality of life, and spiritual support through music as part of an overall health plan. She is an accomplished musician, instrumentalist, and singer-songwriter. She was a keynote speaker at the Illinois Regional Alzheimer's Association conference where she presented Music as Language. With that introduction, it's my pleasure to introduce and turn our screen over to Jen Conley.
Thank you so much, Stuart, and thank you all for joining me this afternoon. As he said, I'm a career-long music therapist. I have interwoven that with other things, which has worked pretty well, but it's truly my passion. So I appreciate you taking a little time this afternoon to hear about that. I'll share a little bit about music in general and what a powerful medium it is and why that is. A little bit about my music therapy profession, some stories, because that is the best way to communicate some of the impact of music. And then finally, how you can use music in your own life as an aid to your own health and well-being. So a little bit about myself. Stuart said I'm a licensed counselor and a board certified music therapist. I have a private practice in the DeKalb Sycamore area. I also recently have been hired by Northern Illinois Hospice, which is an agency, a wonderful community hospice out of Rockford. And they will be opening a satellite branch here in DeKalb. So I'm very excited about that. I will do the music therapy and bereavement counseling. And we will have a hospice in our community that is a community-based regional nonprofit hospice. So I'm excited about being a part of that. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of what I'm going to do, I have to start with music. When I talk about music, I'm inherently limited because the beauty of some of what music does cannot be conveyed via the spoken word. So if you'll indulge me here for a minute, Stuart helped me do a little kind of sound check. So hopefully our balance will be okay. I imagine you'll know this tune. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, you know I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Even here on Zoom, we're gonna let it shine. Even here on Zoom, we're gonna let it shine. Even here on Zoom, you know we're gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Okay. So we do have some inherent limits in what we can do since I am not live with you. But I always do start a presentation with music. And some of the things that I ask and that I will ask you right now is just to think about what might have changed for you with the onset of music. Did you notice any change? Did you perhaps have an image or a memory? Did you maybe start tapping your toe or snapping your finger? Usually, and again, if we were in person, a lot of things happen when you introduce music to a setting. The energy changes, people smile, they might sing, thank you, I got a comment, they might nod, they often look at each other more. So we have increased communication of a nonverbal, we have a shared experience. If you grew up in this culture, you likely are familiar with that song. So it would resonate with you. Things like dopamine in your brain and endorphins will be released with things that you recognize, pleasant music. So I always start with music because that is my medium and that is what I use. So I'm going to start off today by just talking a little bit about music and how resonant it is for us. So it's a human universal. There is no culture, time, or place throughout our history as individuals where music has not been profoundly linked with who we are as human beings. Part of our culture, part of our ritual, part of our ceremonies, part of our story. Mothers in every culture sing to their infants. It's universal. There's actually even something called the universal interval. Da, 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 da. Remember ever hearing that on the playground? Nah. It can be kind of a taunt, and it also can be lullaby and good night. So that, it's called a minor third, but that interval is universal. Babies sing-song that, toddlers sing-song that in every culture all over the world, universally. It's hardwired in us. So then as we gain language and cultural music, that, gets sort of shaped by our social, cultural influence. But initially, we all have that in us. So think about your own life for a minute. Religious ceremonies, sporting events, patriotism, parties. Music is so ubiquitous that we don't even think about how profoundly it's used. Music affects us, though, not just socially and emotionally. It affects your heart rate, your blood pressure, your brain waves, your respiration, your neurotransmitters, your hormones. In fact, we haven't really found an area of the brain that music does not impact. As human beings, it's one of the most neurologically complex things we experience, from the brainstem all the way through our higher regions of thinking. People consistently list music as among the 10 top things in life that give them pleasure. There's a whole industry around music for exercise. There is beginning to be a whole industry around music for relaxation, stress reduction, and sleep aids. So, and why is this true? It's because it works. It inspires us to relax, to engage, to move. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but how we use music intentionally somewhat impacts the results. But music is one of the strongest stimuluses we have as human beings to synchronize our movement. So think about a dance. Everybody's swaying in tempo or moving in rhythm. It can be a slight rhythm like a soft waltz, or it can be salsa, or it can be a driving beat. We move to that rhythm. That is biologically hardwired in you. That is not socioculture. That is not learned. So if you heard that music I started out with and you didn't tap your toe, the motor region of your brain is still lighting up. It's telling you, oh, there's that rhythm. Time to move. So that happens whether we respond to it or not. I would like to think about, if you've probably seen the little videos of toddlers or children barely able to sit up and someone puts on music, their little bodies moving, their little diaper butt is swaying to the music. And nobody taught them that. Nobody said, model me. Let me show you how to do this. And that is what we do naturally to music. I'm going to tell you a quick little story. I met with a gentleman who was a World War II vet, and we got to chatting. He loved music, loved all the big band songs. And he said, you know, when we were in the service, you know, I was overseas, and I'm going to tell you, music saved our lives. So I kind of paused and I thought, you know, I'm waiting for the story. Music often evokes emotion and memories. So I kind of just nodding at him. He goes, you know, we had to march a long time, and it was really cold and it was dark, and we were tired and hungry. And, you know, one of the fellows up towards the front there, we'd have a couple hundred of us fellows marching. One of the guys, he'd start a song, you know, he'd start a tune, you know, like, don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Or maybe he'd sing, you know, like Chattanooga Choo Choo or something. And before you know it, it goes all the way down the ranks, and we're all singing that. And you know what you do? You put one foot in front of the other. We might sing the same tune for hours. And then somebody else start a tune, go all the way up and down the ranks, and we'd keep singing. He goes, you know, I'd have fallen. I don't know if I'd have been able to keep going if I wouldn't have had those tunes. So to me, that was a really poignant story of how our inspiration to move to music and to move together in music, in this case, marching, is very strong. And to him, he said he believed it saved his and other individuals' lives who may not have been able to put that next foot in front of their last one without the impetus of music. So another thing that's really important about music is that we all have a strong musical identity. I'm going to do a little bit of I'm going to pick on a couple of people here. Okay, so I'll ask you to unmute if you will, and I'm just doing this sort of as an example. So I'm going to start with Stuart, and Stuart, I think I'll pick on Lucy and Lynn as well, because I know them. So if you all would just think for a minute, and I'll let you know when to unmute. And I want you to think for a minute about an artist, a group, a song, a genre, a style, a classical work, anything, Motown, whatever, a song or a style or an artist that speaks to you, that you like for any reason. There's no wrong answer here. And just take a second and unmute yourself and tell us a song or a style or artist that you like. Okay, so Stuart, I'm going to start with you.
Well, thank you. I guess, because I've been working virtually and remotely, I tend to listen to classical music in the background as I'm working. And so Yo-Yo Ma and the cello suites have been really something that I've been going to.
Nice, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn, anything that you'd share with us?
I think the music that is most fundamentally in my system is the music of Bach. I know I heard it as a very young child and in church. And although I love all kinds of music, Bach's music is music that I can usually complete the phrase to when I hear a piece. It's that pervasive in my awareness.
That's great, wonderful. And Lucy Sosa, will you share with us?
Yes, so one that I have been singing this week, trying to remember the lyrics, is one that is called Cielito Lindo, Beautiful Sky. Wow. And I heard it as I was growing up in Puerto Rico. And for some reason, it's coming back to me. And what it's telling me is you need to go back there. There's something that is forgotten. There's something that needs to be appreciated anew. And I feel that that is what it's telling me. So if I can just sing a little bit, you know, I don't have the best singing voice, but everybody says that, right? But it goes a little bit just like this. It goes, and I just love to hear myself singing it. I'm like, it makes me happy when I sing.
Great.
So it's like how well I sound or not, right? It's how
I agree.
You
said it better.
Yes. So then he goes, let me see if I can say, de la Sierra Morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando. Un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones. So what he's saying is, ay, 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 which is a cry of pain. But he's saying, sing, don't cry, because when you sing, you become happy.
That's beautiful. I think I need to rope you into doing my next presentation with me.
Oh my gosh, sounds exciting.
That's great. Thank you so much for not only sharing a little bit of the context and the story so eloquently, but singing a little bit of it, because that was extremely heartfelt and it was beautiful. So thank you. And thank you, Lynn and Stuart. And so one of the reasons that I do that is I would ask you all, do you know a little bit more about Stuart, Lynn, and Lucy than you did 5 minutes ago? Yeah. We know what's getting Stuart through. We know what Lynn listened to, and she can just anticipate with pleasure what's coming. And again, some of that is what releases dopamine in our brain. It's the pleasure. We know we're going to have this pleasurable experience. And then Lucy had a wonderful story that involves both culture and memory and some comfort and longing all mixed up together in a song for her. So they say that if you were to put together a list of kind of a recording or something of all the songs throughout your life that have been important and musical to you, or styles of music, you'd have a mini documentary about your life. I mean, you may have the songs your mom sang to you or that you knew in the playground, and you may have, then as your taste changed, you know, a little folk or popular culture, Beatles or whatever, and then classical, maybe you played violin or piano and you've got that woven in, or church music is a big one that people often relate to. So it's a mini documentary, and it's also a time traveler. So music is throughout our brain, and it goes into the brain stem, the lowest regions of our brain. It goes beyond even our occipital and our auditory lobes. And it connects with the limbic system, which is where our emotional center is. And it makes music and emotion unequivocally linked. So you can probably relate to it, a song that reminds you of your mother maybe, or of a time and place. Couples sometimes have a song. Those can be a time traveler. Let's say I knew a song that Stuart loved in high school, and I could suddenly play it for everybody. I could just call it up and play it. So Stuart's probably not only going to have a musical memory, he may have images, sensations, feelings, emotions. The whole package comes back with music. It remains vivid despite the passage of time. The analogy I like to use is, imagine you had a book and there's a passage you really like. So you put a little Post-it note in it and you shove it on your bookshelf. You wait 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And you pull that off the shelf and you go to that Post-it note, and then you're like, oh, I kind of remember I liked this part. That is music. It's still there. You hear it and you're there. It's as if it was secured in time through that. So one of the things I really like, I had an elderly gentleman tell me, you know, we were listening to music and I get great reflections and stories. He goes, you know, you just can't wear out a good tune. And I thought that was so lovely, because it's not like a verbal passage. You know, we may hear something, and if somebody told it to us 10 times in a row, we'd be like, okay, thanks, that was great, helpful. But the right song in the right moment, you might be able to listen to 10 times and continue to find comfort in it. So music is really profoundly interlinked with who we are as individuals, as a culture, as a human species. It's universal across time and space. Your brain with music, there's over 30 regions that light up. Speech is somewhere around 6 to 10. It's very profound, and I have only been grateful in my career that I have such a companion that I get to work with people with. So what I'm going to do here is just take a few minutes and talk a little bit about music therapy per se, and also share some more stories about how I've used music with people in various settings, and kind of demonstrate a couple things. So, and how I'm going to do that is talk a little bit about some of what the goals might be. I'm going to draw into some of the things I just explained to you about how music is so profoundly powerful to us as human beings. So the definition of music therapy in a nutshell, this is sort of the informal definition, is the use of music for a non-musical goal. So it's the use of music or the properties of music: rhythm, pitch, cadence, harmony, melody. And some of those parts of music I may use differently for different people. I may use rhythm heavily if somebody has Parkinson's and I'm trying to work on their gait. I may use melody heavily with somebody who, like Lucy, has a song that's really bringing a lot to mind for them, that has some emotion and also some comfort to it. So the way I use it is going to vary, but it's in the intentional use of music to be applied. I worked with a gentleman, and this was in a hospice setting, and he had a cancer, and he was terminally ill, but he was lucid. He'd had a surgery. He was pretty weak. He was laying down when I started talking to him. And, you know, when I bring up music, people are very ready to share what they love. Sometimes they're very ready to share what they hate too, which is kind of amusing about music. We love to love what we love, and we love to hate what we hate, which is okay. It just speaks to our identity as it's wrapped up in music. But so he was very ready to tell me all about John Denver and how much he loved John Denver. And he, in fact, told this great story about how one year in college, he went on tour with John Denver. So John Denver toured across the country, and every concert John Denver had, he was in the audience. He loved John Denver, and he caught all those concerts. And he told me some stories about it and laughed and sort of reminisced. And he asked for some music. And when I started singing John Denver, his sister said, "I will never forget the look on his face." He was absolutely transformed. He was changed. She said, "He's had such pain. He was comfortable, and he closed his eyes and he smiled." And he told me which song he'd like me to do at his memorial. And I did. And he talked very clearly and comfortably about that and reminisced about various John Denver songs. But for him, it was really an important artist and brought a lot of comfort. And it also united. We had a lovely shared time with some of his family members and myself. Another little story, this is a gentleman I worked with who had ALS. So he I was told he was no longer verbal. He had lost a lot of his swallowing and his verbal capacity. He was on hospice. And if I'm able, I will try and get the information from family about what music people enjoy or respond to, for the very reason that I've told you, that what we love really is hooked into us neurologically and emotionally. So they told me he liked Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm like, great. I'm good with that. I like the old JC Superstar. So I kind of came in and had that and some lyrics with me. And he was, you know, in a hospital bed and had some tubes and things, but I introduced myself, and he had acknowledged with his family he would like a visit. So I told him I was, you know, how about some Jesus Christ Superstar songs? And I'm getting a lot of nods and some nonverbal facial expression smiles. So I kind of start singing a few of them, and I kind of move on to Herod's song, King Herod's song. So you are the Christ, you're the great Jesus Christ. Prove to me that you're divine. Change my water into wine. That's all you need to. So I'm singing the song, and he's smiling and nodding, and actually gets a little bit tearful and is just leaning forward and giving me a lot of nonverbals. So I continue in the song, and I get to that next section where we have a new lyric, and I'm singing, so you are the Christ, you're the great Jesus Christ. Prove to me that you're no fool. And I didn't think about it. And I just looked at him and I stopped. And he said, "Wagga raw my women pool." And he finished the line for me. And he kind of intoned it and kind of sang it and kind of spoke it. But I just looked at him and stopped, and he finished the line. And it was wonderful. He started laughing and I started laughing. And so imagine the scene. It's a medical scene, and there's machines and there's tubes, and he's kind of making this honking sound, but he's laughing. We're both laughing because this sort of unplanned moment happened. And the nurse comes barreling down the hall, like, here's this noise. And she's like, "Is everything okay? Is he okay? Are you doing okay?" You know, and I'm like, no, good. We're good. We're laughing. you know? So she kind of comes in and I tell the story and he's nodding and he's trying to sing it again. Oh, my women boy, you know? And so we're having this lovely moment. And the next thing you know, she's joining me. I don't know how to love him, what to do, how he moves me. She's looking over my shoulder and she starts singing with me. He's smiling and nodding. And so I kind of use that story as an illustration because a lot of things happened in that moment that would not have happened without the introduction of music. We had his self-expression. We had a lot of nonverbal communication. We had a moment of community. We had a moment of coming together around something that was important to him. And then we had the nurse, you know, medical staff. It's great. I love working with nurses. I can always get them to sing with me. They don't want to. You're right, Lucy. Everyone says they can't sing. And then I start doing something they know. And, you know, they go ahead and sing, you know, a 60s tune with me or something. So, I mean, I love music for that ability because you cannot know a single person in the room. And we put on music we all know. And guess what? We suddenly have a common element. We have something in common. Be a spiritual song, it could be a pop song, it could be a classical work. We have a shared communal experience through that music. One more quick story to kind of illustrate music and identity. I can get myself carried away with the stories, but I worked with a couple. They were older, again, sort of World War II era, and they had a song. As I mentioned, sometimes couples have a special song, they dance to it, or they had it at their wedding. So their song was called I'll Buy That Dream. I know a lot of music from that era. I didn't know that song. I also have the great benefit in this era of having YouTube and Google and Spotify and all these wonderful platforms. So I can find anything. Somebody asked me to find old Rattler the Coon Dog once, and I didn't think I would, but I found old Rattler the Coon Dog. I mean, I can find very random music. I could not find I'll Buy That Dream. And it was kind of, I will put some effort into trying to find a song if somebody's articulated that it's important to them. So I finally found an original copy of it on eBay. And he was getting quite ill and weak, but it came in time, and I brought the song. And I went into their home and I told her, you know, I have the sheet music, and I showed it to her, and it was like the old sheet music, original copy. And she was very excited. And she goes, wait just a minute. And so she gets him kind of all situated and smoothed out, and she lays down in bed next to him and she holds him. And she says, play the song. And I did. And I gently sang this beautiful love ballad. And I stopped, and she looked over at me and she said, sing it again. And I did. And at the end of that, she looked at me and said, I'd like you to sing it again. And I did. And not always what you think is going to happen will happen. So you could think that she would be tearful. She was not. She was closing her eyes and smiling. He was closing his eyes, and he was becoming alert and smiling, and they were somewhere else. They were in a happy place. They were in a time and place that was beautiful. And her face was beatific, and he was so peaceful and relaxed. I must have sang it 6 or 7 times, but honestly, if she'd had me sing it 15 or 20, I would have. It was a moment in time. And the music helped facilitate that. He couldn't speak very well. Music can say that which words cannot. And in that moment, that song did. One other little example. And so I talked a little bit about the identity. Music also provides a permission for the expression of emotion. So, you know, none of us really like to be super vulnerable generally. I mean, maybe there are those folks. But when it's a tender moment or you're trying to say something, sometimes music can say the things that are hard to say. Or in my experience, it can open a door and sort of provide an invitation for then things to be said, which may feel uncomfortable or may feel seldom practiced. And it can sort of create a setting where that happens. So I was working with a family, and I was in their home, and Dad was pretty ill, and he was in bed, and his wife was next to him, seated next to him. The family had 3 daughters, and I was getting my harp set up and I was sort of chatting with them and just asking questions and trying to make sure everybody's comfortable. And the third daughter comes running in to the room, flapping this piece of paper, this 8.5 by 11 paper. And she's, will you do this? Will you do this? Please do this. You know, and I'm like, oh, sure. You know, and I'm a little bit on my toes trying to figure out, you know, what it is and what I can do. And it was this song, and I believe you'll probably know it. And she says, Mom and Dad, I want you to know that this is what we want to say to you. This is how we feel. And this is important to us. So I'll just do a portion of it. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I wish I could be. I could fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. So I sang the song, and there were tears, and there were hand holding and reaching out and touching. And an interesting thing happened as I did that. The patient, dad or spouse, became alert, and he reached out and he took his wife's hand. I really still don't know to that day if that was a song that was very important to that family, or if it was just important to that daughter, or if it had a history. But I do know I observed a pretty profound impact. So dad became, he was sort of only mildly responsive, and he became alert. And music can do that. It can create lucidity and make people sort of calls to people. And he took his wife's hand, and they had some very tender moments and said some things, and he verbalized some gratitude and fear, and his daughters were able to say, we'll be okay. It's okay, Dad. We're going to be okay. And all the time in that instance, I'm weaving in gently that song and some other things. And in sort of the gestalt of what I do, my goal then was to do this, to provide that gentle ambiance, that gentle support with the music continuing, and keep that energy and let them do the important work, to say the words to Dad, to Mom, to express the gratitude. He shared some things, and it was really beautiful. And they created that movement, that moment. And it's interesting, I'll tell people, a music therapy session can be with nary a word spoken. Let's say I'm going into work with somebody and they're having pain or anxiety, or they want to just relax. And I may say almost nothing and play for an hour. Or I can do a single song and there can be talking for an hour, and that's completely appropriate. So the goal is really for me as a music therapist, to help invite people into the moment and then let the wisdom of the moment go where it needs to go. And it does. So it's really been a humbling and a profoundly lovely path that I've been on as a music therapist. I'm really not going to spend a lot of time talking about people with memory loss in music therapy, because that would be a whole nother hour. And you probably want dinner tonight. But very briefly, there's a huge impact for people who have a dementia or memory loss with music. And some of that is because it's so profuse in our brain that you can lose have a lot of brain deterioration and still have music. And really key to that is rhythm. So this is a generalization, but the left side is a lot more of our verbal acuity, and the right side is more our rhythmic or music. And that is maintained. It's also, music goes as deeply in our brainstem as breathing. So I have a tool, And real quickly, I worked with a woman who had some advanced dementia, and she didn't know her husband. She didn't know her family, and she had been a church musician. And I would do a hymn, and we'd get to the end, and I'd go, amen. And she would go, ah. At first she would say amen, and then she would start intoning it. And sometimes it was a different harmony. This woman would like add a different one, amen. So, I mean, she couldn't talk, and she would consistently sing the amen at the end of a hymn. It just maintained. And the beautiful thing about music is that I got to connect with her on something that was about her history and what was meaningful to her, and about who she was as a person, not who she is as a diagnosis. It was who she is as a person. So the family would say, you know, we see more of her with you than we do all week. And it's really beautiful. It's something that is getting a lot of attention and research for good reason, because there's ways that caregivers can use it and families can use it. And research shows that for 10 to 20 minutes following a music therapy session, typically somebody is more lucid. So that's a big area that music can be used. And music is highly tied, I'm not going to go into this, highly tied to people who have a faith tradition. One of the things that I'll do with people, and I'll see if I can kind of show you this, is songwriting, which is a legacy. I wrote this song with a woman, I don't know if you can see it, it's called Hallelujah. And she wrote a gospel spiritual song, and she would just quote scripture, and it was so beautiful. I said, you know, those sound like lyrics. And she laughed at me, and I said, no, they sound like lyrics. And so the quick story for her is that we wrote this song, and actually her, Eric Johnson, who does the choral directing and music program at NIU, arranged it, and her church performed this song that she'd written. So, I mean, you can go all sorts of places with music in sort of a real concrete way, in the moment way, and also in the way of sort of legacy. So I want to move on so I don't run out of time, but I wanted to spend, 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15, and just talk a little bit about how you can use music. And then I want to leave some time for questions, but there are ways that you can apply some of these benefits of music in your everyday life. We've all had this really different, sometimes surreal experience of living through a pandemic. And it's changed us probably as individuals and as a culture, but we are learning things, and we are a resilient people. And so we will embark on our gathering together and our things with probably some measures. But this music is a tool you can have in your tool belt. And I will tell people everyone is musical. Again, like Lucy said, that doesn't mean we're all creators of music, but we have this somewhat artificial dichotomy in Western music where we have a stage and a performer, and then we have an audience. And I get to be the expert in music, and you get to be the passive recipient. There's some beautiful things about that. So I'm not knocking that. I love going to concerts. I love hearing people who are amazing at their craft. However, throughout time and in many cultures, there is not that dichotomy. The music is of the people, by the people, for the people. We gather around it. We have songs for different needs. We sing, we dance, we share that. We come together around the music. So we have that history as a humanity. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ways that you could consider using it. So music can really improve your mood. Okay, you can apply music in an intentional way to help lift your mood. The positive feelings that can be evoked by music are very powerful. So studies show that listening to music can help regulate our emotions. It can help create energy. It can increase sort of your energy, I guess, and also used otherwise, it can create relaxation. As little as 15 minutes a day of your preferred music can help boost your mood. So, and again, very important to that is the music you love. So there's times when I would use music that is unfamiliar to someone intentionally, but by and large, what we want and what I use is music that is important to the individual. So music you love, it could be Motown, it could be classical, it could be a musical, it could be classic rock, it could be hymns. Music that is meaningful to you, 15 minutes a day will help with your mood. And again, that's a physiological and it's a neurological impact. One thing that's kind of interesting and is a little counterintuitive is that you might think, let's say I'm feeling kind of melancholy or sad. I might think, I'm going to really get some up-tempo music. You know, I'm just going to shape this mood. And I put on something with a driving beat or something that's really up-tempo. And honestly, that is not what research shows us is best in that moment. What you're going to want to choose is music that matches your mood. So, and that actually we find very comforting and soothing. So if I'm kind of melancholy or sad, maybe I'm thinking about a person, I want to put on music that maybe has a minor key or a slow tempo, or I know soothes me emotionally in those deep places that words may not reach. That's where I want to start. And I kind of think of it like this. Let's say I go to a friend and I say, you know, I'm having a hard time, you know, this COVID thing, and I'm just trying to put myself out there, but, you know, and they're like, oh, snap out of it, you know, just get over it. We all have that stuff. Well, is that going to feel good to me? Probably not very. Maybe there's a time and place for that. So that's kind of what the fast music does. It's not very validating. If I'm really feeling sad, the fast music, it doesn't work. I'm kind of like, yeah, that's nice. What I want to do is I want to match that. It's a technique called entrainment. And then after a couple songs, you know what? I might be ready for a little higher tempo. I might be ready for a little more volume. I can kind of actually notch that up. I can get that part of me comforted and move myself into a place that maybe has a little more energy, maybe feels a little better. So that's something to bear in mind. Music does help reduce or lower stress. It actually inhibits our biological stress response, and it also decreases the stress hormone cortisol, which we release in our body. It can actually help the nervous system recover from stress. Listening to calming music can physiologically ease stress up to 65%. Now, this is a time where the application of music is a little different. This is a time where actually we'd probably use music that is calming or soothing or contemplative or meditative. That's the kind of music to look for. Music will help you sleep a little better. Listening to music up to 45 minutes, soft contemplative music before you go to bed can increase sound sleep by 30%. So again, there's an exploding industry on music for breathing, music for relaxation, stress reduction, and sleep as a sleep aid. So there's a huge amount of apps. There's all sorts of companies. And why is this happening? Well, they're being savvy. There's a market because it works. So keep that in mind. If you're having issues with sleep, kind of funny, music actually helps you eat less. So I don't know if you've gained your COVID-10. I have. My 10 pounds with COVID. So if you put on sort of, again, slower music while you eat, you will consume less. You will eat more slowly, and research shows you will enjoy it more. So what a simple thing we can do is to put some music on that has a nice, slow, soothing tempo and sound to us while we eat, while we dine. Music can actually assist with medical procedures. So again, in this instance, you'd probably choose something that doesn't have lyrics unless you really relate to a song or a genre as being particularly soothing to you personally. But something that's slow, maybe classical, maybe contemplative, it can help reduce energy. I know I'm not a big dental person. I just get anxious. You know, you hear all the grinding and the noise and the So I will often use headphones and some music, and it's enough to just breathe with the music, and it dampens all this chaos and light and noise around me. People will use it actually in operating rooms, in post-operating rooms. It can help with comfort and recovery. So music also actually helps reduce pain. Some of the same neurotransmitters that send out sensations of pain are used with music. So honestly, when both elements are received, the pain stimulus is reduced. Music can serve to reduce the intensity that we feel pain. If we're relaxed, we're also going to perceive pain differently. So that kind of ties into using music for procedures, but you can use music as a physiological as well as a social spiritual way to help with pain. Music can help you move. You know, we can be sedentary. So if you got to clean the house, or you're just feeling like you got to kick your energy up so you get out of the little procrastination mode, put on some up-tempo music you like to move to. One of the things that I've sometimes suggested to people, we are, or certainly have been in this time of isolation, we are in a time in our culture where we have never had more access to recorded music. It's wonderful. You can pull up almost anything you want. And, I've told people use that as a way to connect. We can't go out for coffee, but find a song you like, or you used to sing, with ukuleles, or, find it on YouTube and send a link to your friend. Remember that one? Or maybe you want to be a little more meaningful and send something like, what a wonderful world, or something that, just thinking about you. So you can find a song that makes either you like or makes you think of someone, and send a link, share it, connect with the music. Finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about is something that Lucy did a wonderful job of bringing up for me, and that is singing. We can all sing. That is truly one of the first things that I hear. I can't sing. And I always get really a little heartbroken when somebody tells me about their third grade teacher who says, when we sing, don't make noise, just open your mouth. Because people do unfortunately have some shaming stories around music that some teacher or friend or family member told them. We all can sing. It truly is as natural as speaking. It doesn't matter the quality of the sound. Sing in the car, sing in the shower. There are things that singing does for you. It actually helps oxygenate and strengthen your lungs. So in this time of COVID, we've heard a lot about lungs. We've heard a lot about weak lungs. We've heard a lot about viruses in lungs. Singing actually exercises. It's aerobic exercise for your lungs. There are people with COPD who get assigned, they get actually a prescription to join a choir. Why? Because they're going to have to breathe, and they're going to have to take deep breaths. So singing also does all those good things like reduce the feel-good chemicals in the brain and the endorphins. It results in deeper breathing and thus circulation. It can be a natural stress reducer. So I like to tell people, don't be afraid to sing. You don't have to do it for an audience. You don't have to do it with any other individual in your whereabouts, but it is helpful physically and energy and emotionally to sing, that song that comes on the radio that you remember from high school, or, a dance, sing along, join in with it. Sing the hymns you remember singing, or you remember your mom singing. So I'm going to end real quickly with just a very brief guided relaxation to the harp. So we will not take very long, because I want to leave time for some questions. But I'm going to use the harp, and I will use the harp for relaxation, for stress reduction, for pain reduction, for breathing or respiratory issues. I can start out on my harp at the tempo that somebody is breathing, which in the case of anxiety or pain may be fairly rapid, and I can start with their tempo. And as we really get in sync, I'm going to gradually slow down my tempo. And almost always their breathing will slow and deepen. So I use the harp very intentionally, but let's just take a couple minutes here. And I am going to just talk through a really brief guided meditation. So go ahead and sit wherever you are, kind of comfortably. If you have, maybe think about putting both feet flat on the ground. If you're comfortable doing so, you can close your eyes. If not, that's fine. And just really feel the weight of your body in your chair or on the couch. Feel the support it gives you. and feel your muscles just relaxing into it. In this moment, there's no demands. In this moment, we have a moment to breathe easily and deeply. So what I'm going to have you do is just breathe with me a couple times. So in through the nose and out through the mouth. Once more, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Really release that breath fully. One last time, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And just sit peacefully. Feel that oxygen moving throughout your body. And feel the weight of your body in the chair. Really relaxed. Quickly do a scan. Start at your head and just let go of any thoughts. They're just going to float away like the clouds. And we're going to scoot down and make sure our jaw is relaxed. We hold tension in our jaw and our neck. Relax all the muscles in your neck and shoulders. Keep breathing peacefully. Our arms, heavy resting in our lap or on our chair. And we're going to think of our torso. Let it fully and deeply relax. And then our legs. Our legs do so much work for us. They carry us. Let them have a break and just be peaceful and relaxed. And then our feet on the earth, on the floor, which goes into the recesses of the earth. And we can have gratitude. For the opportunity to take care of ourselves, to gather. So just take a second and peacefully relax. Okay, so I'm going to stop there in the interest of time, but I can use that also in pretty intentional ways. Sometimes people have, like one woman loved a rose and she had pain, she had a cancer, and we could imagine the rose opening. And as her rose opened, the pain could sort of leave, go out into the universe. People often have a natural setting that is meaningful to them. And that can bring a great deal of comfort. So anyway, I am going to go ahead and wrap up that portion. I feel like I covered quite a bit, but I definitely want to thank you for your time. And I want to open it up to if people have questions. I think Stuart was going to facilitate that, or there's probably, if people want to unmute, I think that's a good, we don't have so many people that you couldn't just go ahead and ask me a question. So if anyone has a comment or a question, I'm very happy to receive it.
I have a question, Jen.
Sure.
So as people move towards their end of their physical life, how can their sense of regret, failure, an incomplete life, an unfulfilled life, which happens to some people, be alleviated to some meaningful degree through music?
Wow. So that's complex. You know, she's talking about end of life and somebody with regret. I think that the most we can probably do is there may be something that they, you could do that in a more active way, something that they feel like can be said through music, or something maybe someone else can say through a song that has personal meaning or significance. There are songs that talk about forgiveness and healing and acceptance. The other thing is when we are present to people like that, being there with open heart and non-judgment and love, for lack of a better word, is how we embrace that, how we witness that with someone. It can be very tough for family members, maybe a child of a parent who had a contentious relationship, to be with that person in a moment that helps them navigate some of that and brings peace. So there's no one right way, but I would say there is a place that music could have a role, and that could be actively through meaningful music or through calm music as a gentle presence that may facilitate conversation, or it may be something that people connect with in the moment. And that connection in and of itself provides some comfort and healing.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone with any comments or other questions? You know, it can be a little overwhelming. I find when I talk about end of life things, because, you know, we're not a culture that easily does that. But some of what I love about the music is it's more about the music. It's about the grace in that moment, but it's about celebrating the moment and validating the person and their life and their meaning, bringing some grace to that moment. Well,
Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon and for our conversation and our discussion. If you're watching locally, this exhibition runs through May 15th. You're welcome to visit our website, www.niu.edu/art museum, to schedule a free, timed, masked, and physically distanced admission. If you're not watching locally, portions of the exhibition, very well, thank you, The Arts as a Means to Well-Being, will be viewable in a virtual format online once photographed and added to our photo streaming site, if you aren't able to join us in the galleries. If you'd like to discover more about Conley's practice, you can visit her website at jenconleymusic.com. That's posted in the chat that if you'd like to follow up with that and learn more about her work. A special thanks to our guest, Jen Conley, and thank you all for tuning in today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and the opportunity. Go in good song.
Yes. Jen, would you like to play us out?
Sure. What am I going to
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I thought that might be a nice outro.
Well, let's see. I want something up tempo. We're going to do, well, I'll do this. It's sort of medium tempo. I'll just do a little bit of this.
Thank you so much.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing there in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be, let it be. Thank you so much.